This morning we are going to talk a little bit about the giant African snail. With me is Ms. Sharron Bedasie-Joseph, Agricultural Officer 1 at the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning to you.
All right, so the giant African snail, we hear about it often, but people really don't understand the effects that it can have on our plants in Trinidad and Tobago. Before we get into that though, tell me, how long has that been around, really?
Okay, good morning again. The giant African snail has been in Trinidad since 2008, and we had it contained. It was found in the Alice Glen area, Diego Martin, and it was contained up until 2014. After 2014, up until now, it has spread to over 35 areas in Trinidad, and we are very concerned at this point.
So in 2008, and then there was the spread in 2014. How did we allow that spread to take place?
Okay, so the spread of the giant African snail was basically due to movement of soil that was infested with snails and eggs, and of course people would have been moving the soil not knowing what they were doing. There were 1 or 2 floods which allowed the snails to move down in different areas, and that has well exacerbated the situation.
And we are doing anything, are we doing anything to try and fight this giant African
Well,
snail?
the Ministry of Agriculture, we have been doing a lot of work. We did in fact manage to contain it from 2008 until 2014. And thereafter, it had spread coming through the food belt and on the east-west corridor. We have, some of the areas as well. We are now embarking on a drive that will involve the citizenry. We would want everybody to be on board with us to understand, first of all, the implications of having the giant African snail, and to then come in. Everybody needs to put a hand, literally.
Yeah, but so what can people do?
All right, so there are a number of things that we can do. Firstly, we need to identify or make sure we know that it is a giant African snail we are talking about, and there are some identifying features of it, which is, I think we would have had that sent on.
Yes, and we are going to show some of the pictures so that people
so
will be able to identify it.
So we want firstly for people to understand what the giant African snail is, and to understand that there are other snails around. The common one that you would see, the garden snail, that is what we call a good snail, and the Orthalicus.
That is the one that leaves the little shiny stretch.
Well, they all do. They all leave
okay.
the slime. But these ones, all snails are decomposers, so we need them around. But the mega snail, which is the garden snail, and the Orthalicus, the other one, they are the ones that we want to protect. So once you know that the giant African snail is one that has a reddish brown shell, and there's a stripe, or there are several stripes, cream color stripes running in one direction along from the pointed part of this shell, that one, and you're seeing it on the screen, those are the ones we want to capture or know what we need to do with it.
And when we capture it, what are we going to do with it?
Okay, so we are asking the citizenry, again, to look for the snail. If you find it, if you're seeing it, we want you to collect it using gloves. And
if you touch it, what would happen?
Well, it poses a health hazard in that it is a vector or a carrier for something called the rat lungworm, and that could have health implications with meningitis.
That sounds gross.
Yes. So we are asking people to, wear their gloves, collect these snails, and contain it in a plastic bag or so. Put it in the garbage once it's dead. So the procedure will be collect the snails and kill the snails using pot salt or bleach, 2 cups of pot salt to 1 gallon of water, or 2 cups of bleach to 1 gallon of water. Drown the snails over a 24-hour period. Then collect it, double bag it. You can't put it, this is the last resort, in the garbage, or bury it or burn.
That sounds... I mean, some people might be looking on and saying, why should we go through that? Why do we have to kill it? What are the effects?
Okay.
What can it really do to us that is so bad?
It eats actually over 500 species of plants. It loves pawpaw and bananas, but you can find it on all kinds of ornamentals and leafy vegetables and so. And so apart from that economic loss, because of course farmers and so are very worried to have these snails around, it can pose the health risk, as I mentioned, with regard to...
And can people eat it? Can we eat it?
No,
we can't.
No, well, we are not. Definitely, we do not want persons to.
Yeah,
think
if
that
you
they
can't
can
touch it,
eat
therefore you can't eat it, right?
Yes, because of that health risk that is involved, and these snails are very much. This species in particular, because of the way it multiplies, it can just go on. What they do, they would at 5 months old, they would mate. And each snail would then be able to lay eggs.
And if people want information, they can check out the ministry's Facebook page, Twitter page, and they'll be able to get more information.
You can get all the information there, but what we want to put forward to persons, you can definitely collect the snails and get rid of them because of the health risk, because of the pose,
and it can really be dangerous. That's all right. Thank you very much for coming in and chatting with us, Ms. Sharron Bedasie-Joseph, Agricultural Officer at the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, about the giant African snail.